If you like the story and would like to support the author, check out their Patreon where you can get early access to chapters, a private Discord server, a chance to commission and even influence ongoing stories. The link will be in the description. Today's story was written by Reddit user Sinpleton025. Damn all the hells! Those fucking lizards boarded us. Already I could see and hear the panic on the camera feed. The only camera that was off was the one in the cargo bay. They probably shot those first. From the look of it, they used knockout pellets. On one hand, I was glad my crew wasn't going to die just yet, but a worse fate might await them. Shit. Many of them were running to the bridge. All 5 of the Bowok were here with Entano in the lead. My crew frantically ran in, and I saw the Skellions grabbing more of them. As soon as they get here, rip their heads off, I told Entano. The door opened soon after and one of the lizards got in. Entano grabbed him and pummeled him into the ground. More started showing up and a fight occurred. The Bowok were strong, but they were few. Each of them took out at least one, but they were getting shot and clawed all over. One of the Skellions hit a Bowok with a shock stave, and he fell on the ground panting. Then a loud shot banged and his head was bleeding. One of the damned lizards used live ammo. He wore a bright red jumpsuit and had a scarred face. Another Bowok was shot when he tried to charge the Skellion, and the others were shocked to the ground. Damn it all! The rest of the fuckers got in and surrounded us. The red one walked closer and his lips twisted into an ugly grin. "The ship is mine, Captain," he said, and laughed before pulling me to the others. I wanted to fight back, to protect the crew, to protect Conleia. But what would that do? Just give them a reason to kill us? He sat in my command chair and tapped the screens. I could see the shipment manifest on display as well as his ever-twisted smile. "Octon?" he asked curiously. "What do those toads want so far out here?" I didn't say anything for a moment, not because I feared for the cargo, but because I feared for the ship and crew. What if they opened the container and let him out? What kind of damage would he do? "I guess it doesn't matter," the Red Skellion said. "When we get you back to the station, we'll scrap the ship and sell you for ransom. Though, I don't think the apes are worth much." Entano growled at that and was hit with a staff. He could probably kill 2 or 3 by himself in seconds, but the others would bring him down before he could save us. There was no hope. At least that's what I thought. The doors opened again and everyone, myself included, stared in shock. No one moved as the giant creature rose to its full height. It was him, from the cargo bay. If he escaped, then that means... "What?" the Red Skellion asked, confused. "What is that?" He wanted to turn around, but before he could, the creature lunged forward and grabbed him. He held him in his large arms and walked back. One of the Skellions shot him with a knockout pellet, but it only seemed to anger him. An anger made evident when he snapped the red one's neck and literally threw his body at the others. In a quick motion, he leapt at the other dazed Skellions and began his onslaught, breaking and throwing them one by one. He was agile, strong, and ruthless. Not letting up for a second, he broke bones and shattered teeth with his hands, even grabbing one of the guns and shooting a damn lizard. Gotta say, I was surprised, impressed, and glad at the same time. But then one of them grabbed Margoba. "Stay back, you freak," he hissed, clearly terrified. "Take another step and I take her head off." The creature didn't listen. He stared at him with cold, dead eyes, the eyes of a predator. They were as brown as the bondula trees I climbed as a child, and yet terrifying and deadly. He steadily walked forward, and the Skellion kept making threats. "Scream all you want," I thought. "He can't understand you." The lizard hissed loudly and pointed his gun at the creature, but in a split second he was dead. The creature was faster and fired the first shot, hitting him in the eye. Agility, strength, resilience, precision, reflexes of a predator, and the ruthlessness of a machine. What is he? What the hell did I bring onto my ship? Margoba was on the ground. She didn't move as the creature knelt in front of her. To my shock, he extended his large hand to help her. She took it and then showed him the tablet he drew on earlier. He knew it was her. "Friend," Margoba said and turned around. "He's a friend." "A friend? Did you see what he just did?" Jirab said with a shaky voice. "What if he does the same to us?" Eraton chimed in. "No," Intano spoke as he walked over, his arm still hurting. "He understands the situation. He's not an animal." Intano extended his hand, and the creature almost instinctively knew to shake it. Did all apes have that custom? What is wrong with today? "Basau," Margoba called, snapping out of my trance. "You have to let him help us." I stood still for what felt like a small eternity. Help us? Help us how? Kill all the Skellions? Even if he could, why would he do it? We kidnapped him. He owes us nothing. But a fool's hope was better than no hope at all. I slowly walked over to the screens and presented schematics and images of the ships. Conleia was marked in blue, and the scrappers in red. I put a yellow circle on one of them. That was the leader. If he could get to him, he could end this. "There," I told him. "Over there. Get to him and end this." He didn't understand my words, but understood what I was trying to say. Nodding, he turned around and started walking away. "Wait," I shouted. "I need to come with you." "Absolutely not," Jirab objected immediately. "You could get killed." "He won't know what to do. He can't understand how the controls work. I need to be there." "You'll die." "We'll all die if this fails," I shouted, and walked over to the massive creature. He knelt and turned his back to me. Am I supposed to ride him? Alright, wouldn't be the weirdest thing that happened today. I climbed on as he stood up. I could feel his back tense up. It was covered in muscle, scars, and ink. I couldn't stop looking at the cross that stretched down his spine. He started moving quickly as soon as we reached the hatch. It was still open and no one was on the other side. We went in. He still held the gun with live ammo from earlier. He clearly knew how to use it. They probably have similar weapons on his planet. When we reached the scrapper, it was strangely empty. I could hear noise coming from the direction of the bridge, but not much else. Slightly more than 20 Skellions got on my ship. With 3 scrappers, there had to be at least twice as many in total. My suspicions were proven correct when 3 of them entered the room from behind us. All were carrying guns and were shocked when they saw us. Downright paralysed. The man didn't waste any time and shot them all. He started walking towards the room they came out of. I patted him on the back to make him turn around, but he didn't even flinch. Behind the door were 4 more Skellions. Once again, no time was wasted. Only one of them managed to fire, but he missed and paid for it. A killer. That's what he was. No less cold-blooded than the lizards he was shooting. He finally turned around, and on the steps to the bridge was a captain with his weapon pointed at us. Just before he fired, the ape threw me to the side and ran for cover. "Bastard!" the captain yelled and hissed. "You fucking bastard! I'll rip your head off for this! I'll feast on your entrails!" The man didn't seem to be fazed by this. The captain kept firing until he ran out of ammo and had to reload. He didn't get the chance though, as the man rushed out of cover, grabbed him by the neck and arm, and lifted him into the air. He looked like he was about to choke him to death. "No!" I yelled as loud as I could. "No! We need him!" He turned his head and looked at me before putting the Skellion down and holding him tightly. I walked over, still nervous, but I couldn't let it show. "What is this furball?" the captain hissed. "What is this thing?" "Shut up," I shouted, now feeling braver than before. "If I tell him to kill you, he will." The lizard laughed at that. It can't understand you, can it? He doesn't need to, I said, scaring the captain and then pointing to the bridge. All three of us went over there and I tapped on the console. The hooks were about to release, but the screens turned red. It needed a hand scan. I extended my hand to the man and pointed at the skeleton and then at the console. He understood immediately and forced a scaly hand on the glass. The hooks were released and Conleia went back online. You think you can get away? The captain hissed. You can't kill us all. I looked at the burly beast holding him and nodded. In a quick motion, he snapped the skeleton's neck and dropped him to the ground. Then he grabbed me and we ran back. As soon as we got aboard Conleia, the engines fired. The remaining interceptors tried to attack us, but were shot down. Turn us around, I ordered my crew. Why? Girab asked. We can leave. They'll keep tailing us, and I hate how they look. Get behind them and focus fire on the thrusters. They did just that. We managed to maneuver to their rears before they could understand what was happening. On my mark, the turrets fired and the thrusters lit up. They weren't going anywhere. Good fucking riddance. My crew cheered. We weren't a navy vessel, but damn did this feel good. Even the beast smiled and nodded at us. When the cheers died down and the mood shifted, everyone was now aware of him. He stood still, like a statue, and just watched us. Margoba was the first to approach him. Thank you. Another crew member, a young woman named Hana, approached too. Thank you. Then she did something all of us found strange. She grabbed his large hand and placed it on her head. He started patting and scratching it like she was a pet. What was even more strange was the fact that she seemed to like it. At that moment, he didn't look like a killer or a monster. He was just a big, friendly and physically menacing person with a kind heart. Even Intano and the other Balwok were at peace with him around. I felt bad for thinking he was just an animal. I was scared, no doubt, but less so now. Still, there was a job we needed to do. He has to go back, I said. What? Margoba asked. He saved us. He still needs to be in the container when we get him to Octon. You treat him like an animal again? That's not what I'm saying. Then what? She was about to say, but was cut off. The gentle giant put his hand on her head. She turned around and he smiled and nodded at her and me. Then he turned around and went back to the cargo hold. Everyone was still quiet, apart from Intano, who escorted the giant back. Some looked at me with slight disappointment. Others gave reassuring glances, like they know I did the right thing. Did I? By all accounts, he saved us, and yet I sent him back into his prison. Margoba walked towards me. Adrian, she said. I paused and blinked before replying. What? I translated their lexicon a while back. His name is pronounced Adrian Lopez. And you didn't tell me this sooner? Would you have cared? I said nothing. I probably wouldn't care. I'd just chalk it up as some interesting tidbit and forget about it. Adrian Lopez. A strange name for a strange man. But that's not fair. We probably look like animals to him. But none of that will matter soon enough anyway. The rest of the voyage went smoothly. I stopped at a local station near Kandol. A Kandoli mechanic and his workers did a good job on the repairs. Their small bodies could probably fit in most places around the ship. Some of them opened Adrian's container to look for parts and damage. Funnily enough, they weren't afraid of the giant man. In fact, they were rather entertained at the sight. They kept using him as a ladder and calling him a tree. It was rather hilarious. Soon enough, we were on our way. After another several days, we made it to Nocto Alpha, a station that orbited Tolbar, the planet where the Octon Corporation resided. Led by the Conbar family, Octon Corp was one of the richest and most prominent corporations in the conglomerate, and by extension, in the galaxy. Their main export was organic goods, but their true wealth came from the vast shipyards which they rented out to various companies. From every transaction and trade deal, they received a cut. The number of ships multiplied by the number of shipyards as well as trade centres, and it didn't take a genius to know that was a shitload of money. But they've been having a problem lately. A problem I was paid to fix. We were hailed by the docking officer and brought Conleia in. She went in smoothly, and I could feel the clamps grip her underside. They told us to prepare the cargo hold. As they were unloading the containers, the injured were taken to the medical bay and treated while the dead were put in caskets. Margoba and Jirab explained everything to the security detail. Everything except Adrian. That part was strictly kept secret. I was led down the main hall along with Antano and Adrian in tow. He was in a smaller container with no windows. All around I was reminded of how filthy rich these toads were. Polished floors and walls with paintings and statues, chandeliers of crystal and shining metal hung from the ceiling. Hell, if I had that kind of money, I probably wouldn't be that much different. Eventually, we made it to the oversized wall of a door. It opened to reveal a large office that looked even more luxurious and pompous than the hallway. The biggest distraction was the eyesore of a desk. Dark wood from Holdion, very expensive. It was engraved with faces and symbols I couldn't be bothered to understand. Next to it was a Holdion grey beast, a feline, not too large but burly with long teeth and black eyes. They liked Holdia, the fat pricks. "Like what you see, Captain?" the Tolbar behind the desk asked. Koblo Kombar, 19th of his name, Supreme Director of the Octon Corporation and a member of the Tolbar Council. The only reason I remembered that was because he wouldn't shut up about it last time we met. His big wide mouth was chewing on something, and I threw up a little in my mouth. "You must be Pisano," he asked. "Basao," I answered, trying to hide my disgust and irritation. "Of course. Forgive me, it's rather difficult for me to remember the names and faces of all my contracts." "I imagine. This is my Chief of Security, Antano." The far toad didn't seem interested and just wanted to wave his hand. "Back on topic. How did your journey go? Seeing as how you're here, it must have been a success." I stiffened and tried not to clench my fist before answering. "We were attacked by Skellion scrappers. I lost several of my crew. They tried to take most of us alive, including my ship and cargo." "My condolences, Captain," he said. "But I trust said cargo wasn't damaged?" "No," Antano spoke. "If anything, it did more damage to them." Koblo widened his pupils in surprise and intrigue. "Oh, how so?" "A group of Skellions opened his container, he got out, killed them, and then he killed the others, including their leader." The toad's throat expanded and stretched as he smiled. "So you brought me quite a killer." I pressed the button on the side of the container and the anti-gravity orb slowly fizzled out. When it lowered, I opened it and Adrian slowly walked out, his wrists and feet chained up and a mask over his mouth. The guards readied their weapons, clearly scared shitless at the sight. Adrian, on the other hand, just looked around the room, shocked at what he was seeing. Koblo stood up from his chair, the fat on his stubby body flapping as he walked over. He eyed the giant man from head to toe. Koblo was somewhat taller than me, and still nothing compared to Adrian. "Where did you find it?" he asked. "A planet far beyond the border, deep in unexplored space. High gravity, mostly water, class 4 predators. Kinda like Holdia, but far fewer forests. He's sapient, the only kind on the planet. A surprisingly high level of technology, but not spacefaring. We accessed their databases and found..." Yes, give it to my research staff. "Can it speak? Can it understand us?" I sighed. "No, and no. I didn't have the means to implant a translation module and his throat is badly damaged. We assume a fight. One less thing to worry about then. By the spheres, what a specimen. Now, my payment. Coblo slowly turned around and smiled. Yes, of course. He waved his hand and one of his stewards brought him a thin tablet. After pressing a few buttons, he returned his gaze to me. I gave you a little bonus for a job well done, and for the dead crew members, familiar reparations and all that. You can give all the extra data to Halub here. Was there anything else? Familiar reparations? I wish I could have shoved that tablet down his throat and fed him to his pet. Instead, I tapped Adrian's leg and looked him in the eyes. This was our last meeting. I can't say it's been fun, but it was something. Thank you. Intano patted his shoulder and nodded, a sign of respect, before turning around and leaving with me. Coblo kept smiling as he led the giant into a different room. I had no idea of knowing what would happen to him. All I could do was hope he won't die. Who am I kidding? If anyone should be hoping not to die, it's the bastards unlucky enough to fight him.